And that because, Fox News does not stick to reality. MSNBC is liberal leaning, but they stick to reality. But I'll let you answer that question. What do you say to people and that your network only focuses on Trump for profit?
What happens in the end of an election is everyone sifts through the data and they come up with their perfect, their plan based on, well, this worked and with this group and we got attack here and there. And what politics about is a certain point is like innovation and communication. You got to come up with new stories and new ways of telling.
Hi there, everybody. This one is going to get intense, so stay put. Is it now becoming apparent to the left why they are losing ground? Chris Hayes of MSNBC was just reprimanded by Bill Maher, and the debate was really harsh. Maher presented a bombshell that left no space for discussion, despite Democrats' claims that their message isn't getting to voters. No, your message was received. It was simply disliked by the public. However, that is only the beginning. From political spin to media hypocrisy, we're dissecting every astounding event. Stay tuned for more brutal breakdowns by subscribing and like. The next revelation is even more significant, so stay put. Bill Maher was unreserved. Chris Hayes didn't anticipate it either. With one scathing remark, Maher silenced Hayes' attempt to claim that Democrats just failed to spread their message. No, your message was received. It was simply disliked by the public. The game is over. Hayes continued with a lengthy explanation of political messaging, tactics, and the necessity for Democrats to fight on several fronts. Maher, however, would not have it. He sliced right through the spin, demonstrating that the delivery of the message is not the issue. It's all about the message. Maher revealed the true divide between the Democratic Party and the general public, while Hayes skirted the issue. In an attempt to elicit a different response, the left continues to repackage the same talking points. However, as Maher painfully demonstrated, reality cannot be altered by political propaganda. Voters won't purchase your product if they don't like it. And for that reason, this moment was so potent. It was a wake-up call, not just a debate.
Something I've heard Democrats say a lot, we didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but that's it. And I've said this before to Democrats, no, you did. That's the problem.
Yeah. They're clapping.
You did get your message out, and people don't like the message. And I mean, the message they sent here, they began it with a land acknowledgement. No, I did had a stand-up special. If you haven't seen it, you're losing out. It's fantastic. And I did a whole bit about land acknowledgement, either give it back or shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Sorry for that.
To me, that signal.
That was a signal.
We just don't get it because you're not going to give back the land.
Right.
It
is an empty gesture fundamentally.
Which is what they're so good at.
Yeah. I think that I don't think there's anyone who hasn't had a moment across the political spectrum of some form of progressive communication that's either left them bewildered or a little like, I don't know about that. But I also think at the same time, there is a message of what I would call like common sense, patriotic pluralism.
The mainstream media repeatedly demonstrate that they are more concerned with shaping the narrative than with presenting the facts, despite their claims to represent the voice of the people. When the conversation turned to how new media is changing the political environment, it was clearly evident. The discussion devolved into an effort to minimize the change rather than recognize the increasing power of independent voices. One visitor criticized Trump for inviting independent journalists and podcasters to the White House press room, claiming that Axios, a 5-year-old company that sold for $500 million, shouldn't be classified as new media. The true question, however, is why the decline in the legacy media's influence over the national discourse makes them feel so threatened. For many years, there was little competition as big channels dictated public opinion. Independent voices are now reaching viewers directly, avoiding the old gatekeepers and bringing attention to the subjects the major networks won't cover. Legacy media keeps promoting the same stale narratives in the hopes that no one will notice, rather than changing. However, the public is no longer buying it, as Bill Maher made evident. This is about a collapsing information monopoly, not simply media bias. Additionally, the old guard is fighting to remain relevant as new media continues to grow.
Comparing it to what Elon Musk is spewing out, unfortunately, on X, you sound like Brett Stevens now, with all due respect. It's a joke. That's a real time.
And you sound like him, who looks like Rachel Maddow. Ken Martin guy, he said something I've heard Democrats say a lot. We didn't get our message out. Maybe I'm paraphrasing, but and I've said this before to Democrats. No, you did. That's the
Messages are not the Democratic Party's main issue. It's the actual message. Chris Hayes attempted to make the case that Democrats just need to improve their communication and strategy. However, Bill Maher revealed the true problem. Voters simply didn't like the message, even if they heard it clearly. Regarding political tactics, Hayes continued by stating that parties cannot just copy a winning platform or candidate. He likened it to Steve Jobs' contention that consumers aren't always clear about their desires. Here's the problem with that kind of thinking, though. Voters are aware of their desires. They also go elsewhere when a party disregards their concerns. Democrats continue to lose important races because of this mentality. They claim that voters are just misinterpreting their proposals rather than paying attention to what they have to say. In an attempt to get a better response, they try to package the same unpopular ideas in other ways. However, as Maher noted, substance is more important than branding. No amount of smart messaging or media spin can save a party whose policies don't resonate. And it's the actual problem that Democrats are avoiding. They double down and accuse the voters of not understanding rather than changing their agenda to reflect what Americans truly want. They will continue to lose ground until they recognize this disconnect. Furthermore, people are growing weary of being told what to think, as Maher made evident. It's going to get even more exposing, so stay put.
I think there's sort of two different imperatives that are in a little bit of tension with each other. So one, I think there's an imperative right now for the party to stand up against the most destructive things that Musk and Trump are doing. And I think they're doing some genuinely destructive things. I mean, there's people walking around the world right now with like devices inside their bodies from clinical trials sponsored by USAID that they can't get out. The guards that were guarding ISIS prisoners in Syria were paid on USAID salaries that got cut off. There's a 25-year-old mucking around the code base of the Treasury system. So there's things they have to do to try to oppose. But it's also the case that like all of the reflection that happened after losing that election and trying to figure about how do you win back people you lost was real and true. And I guess my feeling is you gotta fight, you gotta try different things, and you have to be authentic. You can't like reverse engineer any of this off a blueprint. And I really think this is true about politics. Steve Jobs once said, it's not the customer's job to know what they want. Like, it's our job. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Barack Obama off of George W. Bush. And you couldn't have reverse engineered Donald Trump off of Barack Obama. What happens in the end of an election is everyone sifts through the data and they come up with their perfect, their plan based on, well, this worked and with this group and we got attack here and there. And what politics about is, at a certain point, is like innovation and communication. You got to come up with new.
When the debate shifted to one of today's most contentious political issues, parental rights and government intervention, it took a dramatic turn. Chris Hayes argued for individual liberty, emphasizing parents' right to decide on gender-affirming care for their children, without interference. However, Bill Maher quickly highlighted a deeper concern. Maher pointed out that the real issue isn't just about parental choice, but whether children should make life-altering health decisions without their parents' knowledge. In states like California, laws allow schools to withhold information from parents about their child's gender transition, sparking a debate about parental involvement in upbringing. This isn't merely a partisan issue, it's about who should have the final say in a child's upbringing, parents or the government. The idea that officials and schools could exclude parents from such decisions is not only controversial, but also raises significant safety concerns. Maher cut through the complexity of the debate, emphasizing that the left must acknowledge parental rights to have a meaningful discussion on child welfare. Ignoring this fundamental issue risks further alienation from the very people they aim to represent. So if you like this video, make my day by sharing it, leaving a comment, and letting me know what you think.